Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Menachos Chaf Daled. We begin on the second line from the bottom on Chaf Gimel Beis. Ki Salek Rav Kahana. When Rav Kahana traveled up to Eretz Yisrael from Babel, Ashkechinu Livnei Rabbi Chia. So he finds the sons of Rabbi Chia sitting and having a discussion regarding Hilchos Menachos. They ask, the Ka'ari are sitting and discussing a case of a Yisarain Shechilkai. So he took the Yisarain, which is the standard fare for a mincha, a Asiris Ha'efa. So he took that amount of dough and he split it into two parts. And placed it in a bisa, which is a kli sharis, the bowl which they prepare, they mix the mincha. So they're both in the kli, but they're not touching each other. Comes along a tful yom who's tamei, not a severe tumah, he's a fellow who had immersed in a mikveh, has yet to experience nightfall to complete his purification process. So, with respect to truma and karbanis, he's considered like tamei. It's a light tumah, so he only affects the item that he touches, it doesn't transfer further. Okay, so he touched one half of the Yisara. What happens to the second half on the other side of the Kli? It's in the Kli, but it's not touching each other. Kitanas, the question revolves around the semantics of a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that a Kli, right, that the Kli Sharis is mitzaref masha b'teichel l'kodesh. With respect to carbon materials, anything within the same container is regarded as one and the same. This question is, to what extent do we say that rule? Perhaps that's only when they're actually in contact with each other. So we say, okay, they're touching, they're in the same kli, it's one and the same entity. Or perhaps when they're not touching, like in this case, they're separate. Perhaps no different, touching or no touching. The kli is that combining factor. So when you're matami one, the other one on the other side gets tummy as well. So he responded to them. Take a look at the wording of the Mishnah. Mitanan kli machaber. Does the Mishnah say kli is machaber, which would indicate that they're already touching. The kli sort of considers them one and the same entity. Kli mitzaref tanan. Koldu. Mishnah says mitzaref. Mitzaref means it brings them together. Koldu, even though they're not touching, even though they're just in the same container, far from each other, the kli itself affects that connection. So certainly, in your case, the whole Isarin becomes tummy. Next question they asked him. Suppose he has okay, so we continue on the same line of thought. We had a kli with two halves. Then he added another half, which is totally extra, unnecessary for the mincha. And he placed it between the first two halves. So you have three halves right now. Two of the original, and in between, you have the extra half isaran, which isn't really needed there. He placed one more libinayim between the other two. What's the halacha now? Meaning, the tful yom touched the middle half, the extra one. What happens to the first two? So we already established that the tumah spreads around even though they're not touching. But that was when he touched one of the primary halves. But here he's touching the third half, which happens to be in the same kli as the first two halves. What happens to the other halves? Do they get affected or not? Amar Lucy says, absolutely no. Because this third half is unnecessary material. It's totally out of the equation. It's the fifth wheel. Amar Lucy says, tzarech al kli, only material which needs the kli, so to speak, which means to say belongs there. Kli mitzaref, I said the kli connects it and spreads it around. Ein tzarech kli, ein kli mitzaref, but this third half which totally doesn't belong there. There's no business in this kli. So the kli is not mitzaref it to the other two, and they remain pure and free of tumah. Third question they asked him. So back to the first case, you have one kli with two halves. And Hoyshe Tful Yom is Boy Minei Mao. Tful Yom, the same fellow, didn't actually touch any half. He hung his finger between the other two halves. So he's in the airspace of the kli, but not actually touching anything. Shall we say that the tumah now affects the other materials because it's in the same kli or not? Amar Luhus, he says, no, you can't suggest that airspace is a conduit, except by a kli cheres. That's a special halacha by earthenware kli. El kli cheres bolvat. Only over there do we say that anything which enters the airspace is as though it landed on the kli itself. But otherwise, in a regular standard kli, like a kli cheres, which is not made of cheres, airspace doesn't spread any tumah unless you actually touch the material. So they posed him with 3 questions, and he responded. So now it was his turn to ask of them. So back to the kli of the 2 halves. I do kmitza on this half. Is it an effective, successful kmitza? Is it considered like I make kmitza from the entire isarim? Tziruf, this idea that the kli is mitzaref and connects and combines and considers it as a one, is that Menachos, right? So in which case it works regarding chumrah, regarding spreading tumah, or even regarding hilchas kmitza in a positive sense, which is a kula, right? Leniency. Oy d'Rabbanu, shall we say, this whole idea of kli tziruf is only d'Rabbanu and only applies when it comes to tumah, which is a chumrah, which is stringency. We consider it all one and the same, and it gets affected by each other, but not regarding doing kmitza from one part on the other one. Amrullah, they said, look, we're not clear on this. Ulay Shamanu, this specific question we hadn't really heard about. But listen to something similar, which perhaps can shed light on your question. So that's the Mishnah. The Snam, we have a Mishnah, Shtei Menachos Sh'Nichmetzu. We learned about the 2 menachos, which had not yet experienced kmitza, so we have sort of raw material. They got sort of mixed in with each other. Mishnah says, oh, 1 second, if you can still locate separate material, part of it is unmixed, then you can do the kmitza. If you have the ability to locate some unmixed material of this mincha, of that mincha, you can do the kmitza. Ksheres, and they're both okay. So picture, you have a kli, 2 minchas mixed with each other, so the middle is sort of a glob of mix, but on the side you still have separate material. You can grab some kmitza from this side, mincha A, on this side, mincha B, even though part of those menachos are mixed in with each other and sort of disconnected from the kmitza area. If you can't find separate material, psulis, you can't do anything. Now, but if you can find separate material and allow yourself to do a proper kmitza, then you're good. But part of that mincha is mixed with the other one. It's not touching anymore your unmixed material. It's sort of connected, mixed in with the rest. It's disconnected from you. Apparently, you can do kmitza even from a remote area, as long as it's in the same kli. Rava said, hold it, not so quick. Dilma, perhaps I'm not speaking that it's really mixed in together. Of course, the 2 menachos are distinctly separate. They're separate, but not distinctly separate. It's like they're crossing over. Imagine crossing your fingers into each other, right? You run your hands towards each other and run your fingers through, one hand through the other, right? So you can actually see the right hand from the left, but you can't access it. It's like, right? It's hard to do a commit. So as long as you can find separate material, right? This part that's, the palm, the back of the palm, which is not your fingers mixed with the other fingers, and likewise on the other side, you do kmitza from that area, so you're not taking from the other mincha, then you're good, because really there's nothing disconnected. Even the fingers are still distinctly connected with the hand area. So we thought that we're talking about a complete mush, in which case the mush is disconnected because it's mixing with the other. No. It's like the fingers which are extending from the palm. They're clearly connected to the palm area. So there's no question that works. Amar Rav Dilma, perhaps begushin, 2 globs, hamchulakin, which are actually separate. Hasuin kemasrik, like a comb. Right? It's like 2 combs that are sort of joining each other, and that's why it's okay. Okay, so back to our question, which we haven't really resolved. So you have a kli, you have half of Yisara in here, you have Yisara on the other side of the kli. You want to do a kmitza from one on the other. Can you do so even though they're not touching? Because the kli is mitzarif or not? So we're going to attempt to try to resolve this from a different brisa. So what's the conclusion? Rava says, Tashma, listen to the following brisa, which will shed light. The Sanya, the brisa, based on the pasuk, by the kmitza, v'her menu. So remove the kmitza, b'kumtzai. And mimenu teaches that it has to be min ha-mechuber. Right? The kmitza must be a scoop out of this sort of glob that it's connected to. As opposed to what? As opposed to doing a remote kmitza from a distance. You can't bring the Yisara in and split into two separate kelim, half here, half there, and do kmitza. Because they're in separate kelim. Let's make a deal. Let's imply from here. Let's say they're both in the same kli, but they're separate, as though they were in two kelim. As long as they're not in two kelim, they're okay, even though they're not touching. Comment, you can do kmitza. Apparently, as long as they are in the same kli, that's the most important point. Abai says no. Perhaps if they're really lying separately in the same kli, kmitza is not allowed. Perhaps we have to learn the brisa like this. When the brisa speaks about two kelim, shnei kelim echidam, what are we speaking about? Kfisa bekaba. So kaba is a large sized container which holds a kab, and kfiza is sort of a compartment within that large container. Now, the compartment, the walls of the compartment rise to the same height as the actual container. So imagine you have a container with two compartments, okay? Large compartment, small compartment, but the wall between rises to the top. There's no shared airspace, okay? So the point of the brisa is to tell you, if you place a half a Yisara in this compartment and half in the other compartment, that doesn't work. And the point is, the afak of the arivi meilo, even though they're connected from the top, there's heap over the top, and they connect over it. That's not a proper connection. Even the mifsak chitzta, the kfiza mitatoiloi, since the wall around the compartment, around the kfiza, the small compartment, is a mafsik. It's a separator because it goes to the top. So they're disconnected. They're not lying in the same kli, despite some connectivity over the mechita, which is above the airspace, beyond the kli. That doesn't work. But suppose the separator wall between the two compartments wouldn't be rising to the top. It only goes up halfway, and there is shared airspace, and that's where they connect within the kli itself. Now we can imply, let's say, it would be a case where both parts of the Yisara are actually in the same container. A container which resembles two kelim, but not really. Somewhat separate, but not really. Echadami, for instance, going to Rebbe's time to go, like the container they used to feed the compartmentalized kli for the feeding of the chicken. So it has like we said, a low, short wall between the compartments. In this case, since the material rises above that wall, and it's still within the airspace of the kli itself, it's in the container, even though there's a mechitza in between, that would be okay. And both parts would be considered connected regarding doing kmitza from one side and the other, because they're touching within the airspace of the kli. So that's what the brisa meant to say. But in our case, we have a kli. One half of Yisara in here, one half here, and there's no touching, there's no physical connection at all. The question still stands. We're not sure. Here comes another question from Yirmiyah. Again on this topic of the kli affecting this combination. Tseiruf kli b'chibur mayim mao. You have two halves in the kli, they're not touching. The tumah touched one, it affects the other one too. Okay, that's a given. Now, we're not done. There's another half outside the kli, which is connected with one of the halves within the kli through water. Water is connecting them. They're sitting on the same water. And I touched part 1, which affected part B within the kli. The question is part B connected with part C out of the kli through that water connection, and perhaps that becomes tamei as well? Mao. And the question is, Kis Tanan, when we learn that a kli is mitzaref, kli makes that connection, Masha B'Soichei, regarding its content, regarding the kodesh, Hanimil Gavai, perhaps that only affects content in the kli, but it doesn't actually export to the outside of the very loy, but it can affect something outside, Oidilmo, or keep it the Machaber, once the third part is connected to the second part within the kli, perhaps the tumah just spreads around. Next question, perhaps you'll say, once the third is connected to the second, it's considered a connected and it receives a tumah. What about a situation in the reverse? Chibur mayim b'tzir of kli. You have two parts in the kli. You have two parts, one outside the kli, which is connected, right? The same type of setup, but the tumah went the other way. It started on the outside. So you have a kli with two halves, not touching, and the half outside the kli connected to the half in the kli with water. Chibur mayim b'tzir of kli, and he touched the one outside the kli, which is connected to the one inside the kli through water, and that becomes tamei. The question is, will that spread the tumah further to the other half in the kli? So it's the same type of configuration, but the sequence of the tumah travel is in the reverse. It started on the outside. So the tumah occurred outside the kli. Chibur mayim b'tzir of kli, v'noga tefillim b'machutz, and tefillim touched the one outside. What's the status now of the content in the kli? Kitnan, then we learn. Kli mitzaref, the kli connects. Hanila, perhaps that's limited to tumah which occurred in the kli. So tumah is a combiner, a connector with respect to something which occurs in the kli. Hanila, that's only the nogam agavai when he touched in the kli. But when he touched outside, so tumah is coming from the outside into the kli. Perhaps since the event was not a local event, it cannot really benefit and tap into the kli's connectivity power. Dil molish, no, we can say no. Right? So on one hand you can say avon barei loy. If it occurred outside, the kli does not help it. Dil molish, no, perhaps no. The fact is the tumah ultimately arrived in the kli, and once it arrived in the kli, it spreads it throughout the entire kli. Take it, we'll leave it as an unresolved question. By Rav becomes another question of Rav. Isaron, so you have the Isaron Shecholka, which is split into two parts, and one half became tamei. Okay, it's not in the kli. And then he put it in a kli, and he placed both halves in the kli. They're not touching. So now you have a kli, two halves, one is already tamei from the outside, and one is not tamei. Tefillin comes along and retouches the one that's already tamei. But the difference is now it's in a kli with the other half. So shall we say that sort of a new tumah experience in the kli? Due to the fact that he touched the tefillin again, he sort of received this tumah which will now transfer over to the other half in the kli. What's the status of the other half? What are the factors? Miyah Shah would say, Sabba like tumah. Sabba means he's satiated. He's already full. He already became tamei outside. You can't make him tamei again. So, for all practical purposes, we ignore the second experience, and therefore the other half has no tumah coming to it. Or maybe not. Fact is, Tefillin touched him again. It's as though he became tamei again, and now, since he's found in the kli with the other half now becomes tamei through him. Abaye says, why would you even think Saba le tumah, once is enough, he can't become tamei again? Since when do we say this concept? Take a look at a Mishnah where it seems like you're never done with tumah. Sudden, so you have a sheet which is meant for, mattress, meant for lying, tamei midras. So a person who was tamei, a zav, lied on it and made a tamei, a very severe tumah, called tumas midras, primary tumah, ava tumah. Tumas midras only affects an item which is earmarked, which is meant for this type of function, for lying, for sitting, right? And then he redesignated the sheet to be used as a curtain. Okay, no longer suitable for lying. So what happens now? It loses tumas midras. Tar mina midras. It's no longer tumas midras. Midras is very severe. Tumah, if one touches it, becomes tummy. A kli touches it, becomes tummy. In this case, now it's no longer functioning as a midras. But is it totally free of tumah? No. You can't shed off that experience. Aval tummy maga midras. It's as though he touched a midras. Because like he touched himself when he was a midras, even though he lost that midras. Fact is, he came into contact with himself while he was a midras, so he's maga midras, which means he's tummy but on a lower level. Amar Rabbi Yossi, what do you mean? Touched himself. When he was a midras, he was a midras. When he wasn't a midras, he's totally free of tumah. But midras nagazeh. Where did the curtain touch anything? Within its own molecules, that's base hastorim, that's concealed. That's not a visible, exposed type of contact. That's not going to make him tum. Rather, according to Rabbi Yossi, right now he's tar. Eloshim naga b'yazav tamei magazav. Only point is that going forward, if Ezav touches him, fine. So he's tamei magazav due to coming into contact with Ezav. So again, he's tamei, but on a lower level of tumah. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? Ki naga b'yazav miyatamei. So what are you saying? Well, interesting. So Rashi actually says that the Rabbi Yossi's case of the zav touching happened before it was designated as a v-line, as a curtain. Rashi says, "Shim naga b'yazav koydem shasay v-line." That's how Rashi learns. That's how the Gemara learns. That we're talking that the contact with the zav occurred before it turned into a v-line. So let's picture it. Ezav lied on it while he was suitable for lying. He made it midras. And then the Zav actually touched it as well. His skin contact. So now it had two experiences, two reasons for tumah. One severe because of midras, one less severe because of the contact, touching with the Zav. So now he was designated as a v-line. It will lose the first tumah, but will retain the second tumah, maga hazav. And the question will be, how could you get two layers of tumah at the same time? Savalei tumah, once you're tumah, you can't get an additional layer of tumah on top of that. That's going to be the question, right? Kiz naga b'yazav miyatami. So in this case, where the zav touched it, after it already got the first tumah, halacha is, even though it loses its first tumah when it was designated as a v-line, it will still retain the second tumah, lower level tumah, miyatami, afil b'sayif. Even if the contact with the zav, which gave him the second level of tumah, came after the first experience, how could he get another tumah layer, a layer of tumah? Leima, we should apply the idea of savalei tumah. He's satiated, he's filled with tumah. Which doesn't allow for more tumah to arrive. Amalei. So Rabbi responded to Abaye, who says it happened in that order? Who says the Haishim Naga B'Yazav? Who says when the Allah spoke about the Zav touching it? Lebasa Midras, we're talking that it already experienced the Midras, and that would support your point that you can get an additional layer after Dilma Makami Midras. Perhaps it happened the other way. First the Zav touched it, gave it a very basic Tumah experience, and then the actual lying on it, the Midras occurred, which upgraded the Tumah even further. Dilma Makame Midras, Davi Tuma Chamura Tuma Kal. In this case, no question, no work. Because the second experience is a more severe Tuma, which certainly can land on the first lower level Tuma. But in our case of the Yisorein, which already became Tamei through the Tful Yom, and now you want to give it another experience of the same exact Tuma, it's full to capacity. There's no room for it. The Idi V'Idi Tuma Kal, both experiences are lighter Tumas. Tful Yom is a lighter Tuma. Lo, who says you can add a layer on top of a layer. Says the elam is safe. Rather, we're going to prove it from the second halach in that Mishnah. Moeder Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef would agree to the Chachamim b'shnei sedinin hamakapolim u'manachon zal gavzeh. So you have two sheets folded up, lying on top of each other. V'yoshev zav alein. A zav sat on the pile. What happens to the pile? She'el yon tami midras. The top one is midras. Tachtain tami midras. Umaga midras. So the top sheet is midras. The one below that is midras as well, because it was beneath the zav. Umaga midras. In addition to that, it has maga midras as well, which is a lower level tuma. Why? Because he touched the first sheet, number 2, touched the sheet on top of it, which was a midras. And here we see our point. How could the second sheet get 2 tumas? It's already filled to capacity with the tumas midras. How could you give it more tuma? How could you give it a lesser tuma once it already has that full tuma? The most severe tumas midras. Says the Gemara again, you can't prove anything. Hasam vasachas. They were speaking that it happened simultaneously. Both tumas arrived at the same time. As soon as the zav sat on top of the pile, sheet number 2 experienced 2 experiences, 2 reasons for tuma. First of all, midras, because of the zav's weight, the zav's sitting on it, the zav's use, and the fact that tuma spread, got transferred from the first sadin to the second sadin. So of course, both arrived at the same time and both apply. But here by the mincha, there was one contact yesterday, one today. It's 2 separate events. So now, we're not sure. Perhaps you can say too late. He's filled to capacity. He's already tamei. You can't add to it. In which case, he will not affect his counterpart in the kli. Because no tumah occurred while the 2 halves were sitting together in the kli. Okay, let's just quickly recap what we have until now. We had some questions of Nei Rav Chia to poster of Kahana regarding the 2 halves of Yisorein and a kli. He clarified for them that the kli is a mitzarif, even though they're not actually touching, the kli connects them, and if one becomes tummy, the other one becomes tummy as well. That only affects material which belongs in the kli, not the third half, which has no business in the kli. And airspace is not a factor unless it's a kli cheres. He responded with his question whether this idea of combining is Menachos, which can actually facilitate a kmitza as well from one part on the other. We thought we had a raya from the Mishnah, and Rava sort of negated that raya. We had a raya from the story of the compartments. Again, we negated that raya. Rabbi Yirmi had a question regarding 3 halves, 2 in the kli, 1 outside, connected by way of water. What happens there? We had this way and that way. Then Rava's question: the half became tummy outside the kli. Then, while in the kli, with the other half became tummy as well. Shall we say, well, now it's a new experience and it affects both halves? Do we say no? Everybody was tummy. You can't get more tumah. And we're not sure about that. Amar Rav. Continues Rav with another story. So you have an Yisorein, half of it went missing. Gone. So he came up with another half of Yisorein. And now he found the missing halves. He has 3 halves. An extra half. And they're sitting in the kli, all 3. Amar Rav Yisorein shechilkoi v'av echad mehen. Took the Yisorein, split into 2, 1 half disappeared. V'hifresh achat tachtav. Then he was mafresh another half instead. And you have all 3. V'nimtza rishon, he found the first half. All three are sitting in the bowl. Nitma avad. So you have, let's give them numbers. 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 are the original ones. 2 was the one who was lost and was recovered, and 3 is the replacement. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so 1 is the, let's call it the Rishon. That's the original one, which was always here. You have number 2, which was the lost and found. That's the Avud. Third, which is the substitute, is called the Mufrash in the Gemara's Lashon. Okay, so you have Rishon, Avud, and Mufrash. Rishon is the first one, never was always here. Number 2 is the Avud, which was lost and then recovered. Third is the Mufrash, which was designated to replace the second one, which was then retrieved. Nitma Avud. Okay, so Tuma touched the Avud. Avud is number 2. Who does he connect with? Who does he relate with? Avud Rishon Mitzdarfen. So the Kliz Mitzaref connects him and the first one, because they were meant to be together. They were one and the same entity. Mufrashem Mitzdaref, but number 3 is not Mitzdaref. Doesn't get affected by their experiences, because he was never meant to go together with number 2. Actually, he was there to replace number 2. His whole reason of existence, his whole purpose was to replace number 2. So when something occurs to number 2, with number 2, an event, a tumah, which transpires with number 2, it's unrelated, unconnected to number 3. Okay, that's clear. Nitma Mufresh, but let's say number 3 became Tamei. Again, he only connects it back with number 1. Mufresh Rishon Mitzdarfen. So the tumah will now spread to number 1, but will leap over number 2, because number 2 and number 3 were never meant to go together. They're mutually exclusive. They're competing entities. Over there, Mitzdaref. Nitma Rishon, let's say tumah touched the number 1, Shnei Mitzdarfen. Oh, in this case we say all 3 are Mitzdaref. He connects to number 2 and to number 3, because he relates to both of them. Originally he was meant to be with number 2, then he was meant to be with number 3. So his tumah spreads all around. Abai Omar. Abai disagrees. On the first 2 cases, he says, Afilu nitma echad mehen, nami shnei mitzdarfen. No matter which one becomes tamei, even number 2, number 3, all 3 are mitzdaref, they become tamei. My time, you know why? Because now they're all part of the same family, they're one and the same entity, inseparable. Kulu b'nei biksa, da'adadi, ninu biksa is like a home. They all belong to the same home. Once you have them together, they're all inseparable. In similar fashion regarding Kmitza as well. So if you want to do Kmitza from this half and cover the other half, which one connects with what? So again, we have Machlekes Abai. Rava is sort of selective in this regard. He picks and chooses which one connects to what, and Abai says, no, it's all one in the same family. Kamatz Mena Abad, he did Kmitza on number 2. Shi'arav Rishon Echalim. So whatever is left over from the number 2 and number 1 are called leftovers. They've been addressed by the Kmitza, and they're considered shirayim. But mufresh ain't a nechal. But number 3, which is the mufresh, you can't eat it. He doesn't belong. He's not part of this package anymore. Kamatz mina mufresh. Let's say the Kmitza was on the number 3. Shi'arav Rishon Echal. So he connects back to number 1, and the shirayim of both are eaten. But number 2 is not eaten, because he's sort of an outcast. But if the Kmitza from the first one, he connects to both of them. Shneim and Echal. So in this case, you have a problem, because he connects to both, to 2 and to 3. And that's impossible. You can't have an oversized mincha. You can have 1.5 isarin. So there's something extra. We're not sure which one. Which one is in, which one is out. So both, number 2 and number 3, cannot be eaten. Abai Yomri says no. In all 3 cases, you're running into the same extra oversized mincha issue. I feel kamatz mechem, irrespective of which one the Kmitza took place. Shnei ein echon, you can't eat the other 2. My time, you know why? Kulu nami b'nei biksa dadinino, all part of the same entity. And you have an extra half. Maskler Rav Papa. So Rav Papa says, I have a question here. You have an issue with the extra one etc. But what about this one itself? This half who experienced the kmitza, that's safe? The shiraim today, the leftovers of the actual half which had a kmitza, you can eat. You could danka, the comes like karev. Danka is a sixth. There's a sixth of the kaimets which had not experienced kmitza. Some actually changed the girsa to tilsa. A third of the kaimets is missing. Basically, the point is that you have three halves. Half Yisar, half Yisar, and half Yisar. And he only did one kmitza. And since the kmitza relates to all three halves, so a third of the kmitza, some third, right, of this kmitza, which relates to that extra half, Isarin, is not a proper kmitza. Again, he did one kmitza on all three halves. One of these three is extra. So correspondingly, right, that portion of the kmitza which corresponds to that half is extra. So that third of the kmitza is not a proper kmitza. So the kmitza is sort of missing that third. Now, some have the girsa danka, which is sixth. It's the same idea, basically. The missing third, if it's split amongst the two halves of a mincha, so it's a sixth per half. So that's why it's called a sixth. Mincha is meant to have a full Yisar in two halves, and each half is missing a sixth of the kmitza. Basically, the kmitza is missing a third in total. Again, the kmitza relates to all these materials, and these materials are too much. It's a third too much. Mincha is meant to have a Yisar, here it's an Yisar and a half. So the kmitza, in effect, is a third. A third of the kmitza is obsolete, is not proper material. So how could eat the shiraim of this kaimetz of the? It's not a proper. Another question. The kaimetz kufei. Forget about the leftovers. And the question of how did they experience a successful kmitza, and how to. What about the kmitza itself? How are you going to put it on the mizbeach? Part of it is unsuitable. Part of it relates to the extra third. The extra, half yisarim. How you could tell us the chulin? A third of this kmitza is chulin, is not carbon material because it corresponds to the extra half yisarim. I'm Rav Ashi, look, I'll answer both questions with a simple answer. Look, kaimetz b'dat the kohen tali milsa. It's all about what the kohen is thinking. The kedusha, the whole kaimetz experience is contingent on the kohen's intentions, and he has the right intentions. The kohen and the kohen kikometz when he does the kmitza, ayisaron kikometz. He's ignoring the extra material. When I do the kmitza, I'm thinking just isarim. I'm not sure which one is. But whichever one is the proper isarim, that's what I'm doing the kmitza on. So there's nothing missing, there's nothing extra, and it's a proper and successful kmitza and a successful haktorah, which allows me to eat the shirayim of this kmitza. So again, although technically I have too much material, I have three halves instead of two halves of Yisrael, but in my mind, my kmitza only relates to the proper amount, not relating to the rest, leftovers. The part that doesn't belong here, so it's a successful kmitza, and I can eat the shirayim. Okay, so again we have a story of three halves. One is the original, the second one was lost and then found. In the meantime, you had brought another half, so you have all three sitting here. I made a question regarding the tumah of one affecting the other. Which way does it go? Do we pick and choose, or do we say it's all one family? Right, and likewise regarding kmitza. And ultimately, Rav Ashi's answer, that's all in the mind of the kohen, and therefore, it is a successful mincha. All the best to you and hatzlacha.